Hello again. We are looking at another vintage league today. This one is Bug Survival Countervine. And I think my last video I did was a Survival 1-2, but now we've got blue in here, and it's quite a bit different. So take a look at this. So we've got the same core here. You've got Survival of the Fittest, and that can pitch Vengevines into your graveyard and chain them. Then eventually you can pitch a Walla, which plays a creature for Vengevine, while also finding a card. You can find like a hollow one. So you pitch 2 cards, hollow one costs 1. You pitch 3 cards, hollow one's now free for your second creature. It's a good interaction here. Same thing you see in traditional Countervine decks, where you're going to be pitching Wallas and Vengevines and then playing hollow ones on the Wallas to get your Vengevines back into play. The survival package is a couple other things. So Master of Death let you play a slow grindy game. So let's say your opponent's got a Containment Priest in play and you can't bring back the Vengevines, then you can just pitch Master of Death every turn, grab Psychic Frog, or just grabs other creatures here. You can even just hardcast Vengevines at that point by grabbing them. Once you play a bit of a grindier game. You also have Psychic Frog. Psychic Frog does a similar, has an interesting abilities here beyond its normal, really strong one. So you can pitch Vengevines and Wallas and Master of Death, which can all give you some value here. In this league that we're about to look at, that does come up, and it's a pretty good, pretty cool turn here. Not always, though. It's usually if you play an early frog, it lets you do some explosive stuff, but why not? Then we have Kiora. Kiora is a new one from Foundations. I think that one's been a little bit overlooked. Now, it's got a bit of a problem with Orcs. So it's got 2 toughness, and when it enters, you are forced to draw 2, discard 2, which is normally good, but obviously pretty bad into Orcs. But if your opponent doesn't have an Orc, this lets you draw 2, discard 2. That can pitch Wallas, that can pitch Vengevines, that can pitch Master of Death, and or just filter lands if you need to. And then it has a second ability here, when if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, and it attacks, you create an 8/8 legendary octopus, which is pretty cool. And that does come up in this video, in this league as well. Quite like that. I think this was actually a fairly strong card. A little bit held back by Orcish Bowmasters here in Vintage, but I do think it's interesting. And then just some powerful tools to round us out here. Force of Will, Force of Negation. Trawler can be pitched to Survival and also played as a land and also Graveyard Hate, so pretty good versatility here. Oko is just a strong card. Time Walk. Oof as a survival target, so let's say we're playing against jewel shops or something, and we buy a little bit of time with a Force of Will, Force of Negation, then we can start to help block things up with Collector Oof. Feed the Swarms a hedge against survival. This kind of deck typically has trouble with survival, so that's a bit of a hedge here in our removal package. Just have Time Walk, Recall, and then Deathrite Shaman's a good way to ramp into stuff, along with the Mox in here. Mana base is pretty standard, but we've got some Yavamayas in here, so make sure our lands can make green. Some of them don't. Survival, you want a bunch of green mana. And this deck has 3 wastelands, a strip mine, and underground sea, which do not make green mana. So this is a little bit of a hedge there. Alright, let's take a look at the league. Alright. Round 1 here. We've got we're on the draw against Luris. We have a pretty reasonable start here if we can get this Oko down. That's a brutal spell pierce. That's a really brutal spell pierce. And a pretty brutal wasteland there. We are certainly on the back foot at this point. Saga, alright. And missing that land drop probably means we're just dead. I think we do go a few more turns here. Just kind of want to see the opponent's deck, what they're doing, and obviously this is vintage. You could, in theory, draw out of it, but not at that point. All right, let's go to game 2. We got some reasonable tools on our sideboard there. We didn't look at that too much, but definitely some cards to bring in for Lurrus, side out some of those forces, which aren't as good. Opponent's got their Saga again. Quite good. We got our second survival there, so we're baiting their counter magic here with our first survival. The opponent's choosing not to waste us because they want to make their tokens. That helps us. Now I'm not sure if I should have pitched the hollow in there. I think in retrospect I should have pitched the frog, and that would have let us bring back the Vengevines quicker on the next turn. So I didn't quite think about the math there. But the time walk saved us a bit there, which lets us set up this turn here. We get our Vengevines back. This is pretty good. And we got game 2. Go to game 3. This is a bit of a riskier hand, a one lander, but we've got Deathrite Shaman and we got a recall, so I think I'm okay taking that risk here. Opponent's done a lot of sculpting over there. We did not draw another land, so I want to try and get this Deathrite Shaman down and get more mana going here. Did not hit any Moxen, but we can discard our Vengevine here, which is not a bad thing for Vengevine. They've got Lurrus, but we've got a good chunk of removal, and this lets us do a pretty nice play here, where we play the Kiora, Basking Root Log gets to discard the second card. We bring back our Vengevine, which is really nice. We have their Saga for the third time. That's pretty strong. We also have their Lurrus, so let's see what we can do about that. They don't have anything in their graveyard to bring back though, which is certainly a help. Now we're trying to get the 7 cards in the graveyard here for the Cure trigger. That's why we're pitching stuff to the Psychic Frog. Now we've got our giant 8/8 octopus on top of our other threats, and the opponent calls it a day. So that was a pretty good one. Pretty happy with that. This is definitely a fun card and pretty powerful. Alright, let's go to match 2. Alright, we've got a turn 1 Deathrite Shaman here. That gets aggressively forced. Playing another Luris matchup here. And that's why they forced it, as you can see. Get their Ragavan in. Otherwise, Deathrite Shaman would balk, and they've got. That's just a very strong start. It's going to be hard to come back from that. Time Walk certainly a start, though. And we get our Hollow One. We can play our Hollow One for 1, bringing back our Vengevine. We are keeping up force here. But they're drawing a lot of cards. In retrospect, I think that might have been too aggressive. I think I should let them go there. I was thinking maybe we can try and tempo them out, just not let them get enough resources there. We already have pretty good clock, but I think that might have been too aggressive. Because that recall is very scary. It really pulls them ahead here. We really need a creature here. Now again, I think I probably should have, and this is where I think I really messed up. I think I should have just held the frog, pitched it, got a bunch more vines, and then tried to win on the next turn. Because yeah, multiple removal spells here does just beat us, and there's really no need for that. So should have just held the frog, end of their turn, pitch it for a Vengevine, pitched another Vengevine on our turn, then just tried to win with 4 Vengevines attacking. So I think I threw this one away, just not thinking. Survival is a very powerful card. Opponent's not going to stop it. You do really want to lean into it. It's better than Psychic Frog or any individual threat when it's really gets going and your opponent doesn't have enchantment hate, but not a ton of enchantment hate. Running around, a lot more creature hate as far as permanence goes. So should have definitely, I think, could have won this one if it would have just trusted in the survival way. The other thing is, we've got wastelands and stuff in our mana base. This is a one of. I think there's definitely a consideration here to try and improve the mana base. or change the mana base a bit. Improve the strong word, but change it to a more green. There's 3 wastelands: a strip mine, the Bogart Trawler, and the Underground Sea. We have the 2 Yava mine to try and help with that. But if we don't have one, we can end up with occasionally a strange hand like this where the survival is not quite as good. We also have, Black Lotus and Deathrite Shaman in cards, so I don't think it's the end-all be-all here, but I think it's definitely something to think about when looking at the mana base for this deck. Okay, let's go to game 2. That's a really tough swords there. that is not what we want to see. And we've got our survival, but we're low on mana here. And that strip mine is brutal. We really need to find a lands in the Black Lotus here. That gets us some mana, but I think we should have the green one here. The green one, that would have made a world of difference here, I think. The green creature land. Disciple of Free Release, I think. We do get the Lotus, so we can do things. So that Lotus kind of really bailed us out here. We look pretty scary at this point. The opponent's just loading up their frog here. They can't attack. So this was a big punt. I play the Walla instead of pitching it. I really lost the game here just because of that. Gives them, this just can't give them that time here to recover. So that was a pretty big punt by playing the Root Walla instead of casting it. That stopped the chain, gave them a bunch of turns, and then we kind of just dirtle here a bit because we can't really attack through the frog. I certainly feel like I should be able to win this. They've got a Lavinia and a Psychic Frog and nothing else going on. We've got a big army here. And we're still struggling. And this was a terrible attack, as you will see in a second. All I had to do was leave back another blocker and I was fine, but they draw Demonic Tutor and a Time Walk and win. Just a really bad punt from me. Did not even consider that Time Walk wasn't out for them at all. I thought that was even after the Root Wall punt where I played it instead of pitching it, I thought we were still fine. Did not realize, underestimated Frog a bit, which something that can happen. But that was an annoying one. This match was entirely winnable both games, so. That's Magic, that's why you play the games. So, on to round 3. And we've got Innistrad Revenue Service on this one. Enjoyer of Workshop decks, usually the more fair prison-y kind. Turn 1 Frog's always good. That is not a bad start. Now we get to do something fun here. We can pitch the vine, pitch the walla, and then get back the Vengefine. That's pretty cool, right? that's a very fun play here. Draw the card. You can play the Deathrite Shaman after that. Serpent's a problem though. Serpent has reach and blocks the Psychic Frog all day. And Lodestone is no slouch. And yeah, we get there off the taking out the shops, and then they can't use the tomb. So that was a fun play. I really like the interactions between frogs and some of these pitch cards. I think there's more room to develop there too. I think because there was that bug survival deck for a little bit. I think that's a little, that's still pretty reasonable. I think there's ways to try and change that and make it into similar to this, but with Bazaars. Try and make it into a deck again. It's pretty cool interaction there. Alright, so now our opponent knows what we're doing in game 2, so this is going to be harder, and let's see how we fail. Got a Mull. Not the strongest hand. It's a little slow, especially against this start. Shop in Crypt. And we can't let that resolve, so that's down to 4 cards here, and we can't do anything turn 1, and they still have a ton of mana, so that cage is a problem. That stops the Vengefine plan. Survival is not what we want to draw. Can't play the frog here off of the Yavimai's Cradle, so that's a little bit of tension here in the mana base. So you're seeing that here. You want green for survival, but then Psychic Frog is blue-black, and it's hard to. And Wasteland's a good card, obviously. We play this kind of strategy. A lot of powerful lands in there that can overpower you, so. With attention to the mana base, I'm not saying my mana base is perfect here. I think there's, probably some opportunity. That will let us play the frog next turn or the Oko, but we'll probably a turn or two too late here before getting some engines online. Now they've got Inventor's Fair. They can loop that with Crucible. They named Survival, not Deathrite Charm, so it does let us take out the Fair, which is quite good. Recall is a strong card. I'm not sure about playing the Oko here. Oh no, we do have the cage and the needles. They can't use the survival, so we have to play the Oko. Tabernacle is annoying for sure. We alt the cage so we can bring back the vine, but I think I forgot that we still have the needle on the survival here, so it wasn't not particularly a game-winning play here. I think we were just too slow this game. We could have gotten things going a turn or two earlier, it might have been different, but we did not. That's an awful draw. Turned off by the pithing needle over there, so just a complete blank when we really need something. Notably, Oko can do nothing about Stonecoil Serpent. It has protection from a multicolored. The only thing we can remove this with is Long Goodbye, and yeah, backing it up there. Alright, so we're on to play game 3. That is quite a useful thing when playing against workshop decks, especially the non-blue workshop decks. That hand is not proactive enough. We're going to keep this one. Again, it's a bit slow, and a Wasteland here is going to rock us, but otherwise we can get a Frog down. And we got to pitch that. Feed the Swarm would cost 3. We can't pay 3, so we just got to get this Frog down and try and recoup. This is not a good place to be, obviously. Now they've got Strip Mine Lock. We're in a lot of trouble here. And we're just going to try and go Big Frog. So one thing Shops struggles with is removing, or can struggle with it, depending on how they board, how removing a creature. Especially a big creature that can survive a Dismember. So we're just going to put everything in the Frog and just hope that that gets us there. We can't play spells. They got Strip Mine Lock here. But while they're dirtling the Strip Mine Lock, we do have an opportunity just to throw everything into the ridiculous Frog creature. And that's what happens here. We are in a lot of trouble, but this is a ridiculous Magic card. And when your opponent gets you into a tough position where you're locked out, you can just throw all of your resources into this and then just try to get there. And that's what happens. So we're 2-1 now. Alright, we both take a mulligan here. We're on the draw. Another Shop Scanner. And that is a turn 1 Mystic Forge. That is a scary start. They must like what's on top. They're not trying to dig here. That is a little late, Mr. Forcible. But turn 1 Frog is nothing to sneeze at either, so we certainly need some help here. But and it's Jewel Shops. Taking 3 there, and the Crypt does help us. If we can maybe try and tempo here with the Frog, the Force of Will. This is why they played the card untapped though, because that returns our Frog. We gotta play it again, they get a whole new turn. So we're certainly behind here, but not over yet. And then their Mana Crypt is not helping them. That is certainly good for us. So we're going to try and do a similar tempo plan again here. Try and get this clock as good as we can here while slowing them down. Take out that Shops, lean on that Mana Crypt here. And hopefully they can, they don't have infinite mana now we took out the Shops. Hopefully they play like a big chunky thing and we get rid of it. At this point we could hit the Trinisphere, but Trinisphere is also stopping them, and if we want to just try and tempo them out with the Frog, we want to pitch our cards to Frog and not actually just not worry about the Trinisphere. So this is exactly what we did here. And we get there. A little lucky, to be honest, but we stuck with our game plan here. Try and remove their mana, slow them down, and then tempo out with the Frog. So that worked. Game 2. So we get to bring in some good cards here. We've got a bunch of null rods in the sideboard. Notably, though, this deck in Dual Shots has innovated to the point of playing not only Masticore but also Kappa Cannoneer, because Kappa Cannoneer, even with the null rod on the table, you can still use its improvisability to tap your Moxen and stuff to pay for it. So you can win through a null rod, so you gotta be careful about that, or as careful as we can, I guess. But it's some pretty cool innovation, in my opinion. Gives it a lot of play to the deck that used to, really struggle against a Wasteland Loom. Now they just have fast mana here. This deck really wants fast mana, so instead of going for the Oko, we opted to try and slow them down a bit. Got a little lucky there with getting value from our feed this one. It's mostly in there to deal with kind of the Masticore type cards they sometimes board into. Trying to hit Cap is a little bit of a stretch, but not impossible. And that's a problem. But they can't win. And they go for that. That's a bold play because they have to draw 3 cards. They can't just chain that into a win. We get the jewel like we did just there. So they probably had to, but certainly a risky play, and can definitely backfire. Yeah, and we got that one too. Little bit of a little tense there with the jewel, because they start chaining into Phyrexian Metamorph and mana and stuff. They can win, but it's only 3 cards, and often nothing. That's certainly not a win that's guaranteed. So quite happy about that. All right, last 3-1 now. Let's go look at the last match. We have no blue mana, but we got Survival and Force. We can, if we need to, pitch the recall to Force, and we've got Survival with the Vengefine package, so I'm going to keep that. The Cavern turns off our Force, which is a problem. Now we're in a very bad spot here. We really just have to hope that we draw into some stuff that's good. But at least we can tempo them slightly with the Force. Wasteland's obviously very scary. And I did not realize that they had 2 Chancellors. It probably didn't matter. I should have thrown a Walla into this in retrospect. Did not realize that. Probably still losing this one anyway. This is just a strong start from them and not a strong start from us. But might have been a mull in retrospect, but maybe not. It's a tough one to say. If you have an opinion on this should be a mull, let me know. But yeah, definitely if I realized they had 2 Chancellor triggers, I would have thrown the Walla into the triggers. And I don't think it would have really switched the game too much. We end up here being able to do some stuff, but they're 2 developed already. So go to game 2. All right, not a bad hand. We've got Trap. If we can't use the Trap, we can pitch it to Force and recall and Shaman to get us some mana and build here. So quite happy with this. Spell 1. Spell 2. Looks like our Trap is on. And it is. Really like Trap against Mono White Initiative, especially on the draw. And then they just scooped that Force there. Our hand was actually not amazing, but they probably weren't. The 3 feet probably going to get there. So that's pretty good. Let's go to game 3. on the draw against mono white initiative is very scary, especially with bug. But we have tools for sure. We can force some of their fast mana. We do have removal, and we do have a bit of a combo. That's a tough one. That's a brutal vexing bauble there. It takes out our force. Really need that for part like a tempo plan. Just trying to slow them down here. Really hoping that they only have 2 mana here. If we can draw like an Oko or something. Countervine's not the worst. That does give us a bit of a clock. We've got removal here, so the first threat they play we can get rid of. But they keep drawing mana, or having their drawing mana and then playing threats. I'm not sure about that feed this one. I think I should have just attacked. In retrospect, I think that might have been a bit of a mistake. We've got survival, but we've got no creature here, and only 2 green mana. Now none because we use the land here. We get mana again, but we're in a lot of trouble here. We really need a removal spell or a creature kind of thing. And I punted here because, should have fetched first. And there's still Moon Cavalier. One of the new innovations from Chout and the Mono White Initiative. Cards are really strong into the format, especially like the Luris control decks and the Mirror, where they really can't deal with it. So, a bit unfortunate, and on that last one there, I think I could have swung a bit of a different way. Very close. We finished 3-2. Take a little bit of a debrief here. So, let's see. Find our matches. Alright, so we did pretty well. Ended up 3-2. This one against a best beast here. Punts issues both games on my fault. Certainly could have gone a different way if I would have, played a little tighter. So I think that one, we can chalk up to me. I think the Mono White Initiative matchup is tough though. Certainly a case here for trying to maybe tech the sideboard a little bit differently in order to deal with Mono White Initiative. Let's take a look at the list again. So we've got to feed the swarms here. One card I've been thinking about, maybe not for this deck, but I think one matchup where we might need a little bit more is this Mono White Initiative. Very popular right now. Doing really well in challenges, played by a lot. We're bringing in the traps, we're bringing in the feed, the swarmers, but I still feel like we're playing off the back end here against Mono White Initiative. I think that's one to think about. Like we saw, the Luris matchup is, obviously it's probably the strongest. Luris is probably the strongest, almost certainly the strongest deck right now. Especially some of the control builds that we played against here. I think we're pretty reasonable against them. We have some tools for sure, kind of like that. I think against Jewel and Dredge, we've got tools as well. So they're pretty happy with those matchups. Mono White Initiative, though, I do think, while we did take game 2, we do have removal. We have, ways to slow them down, ways to stop them here. That is one I would like to look at a bit more. I think there's that 2 and a black card, destroy all white creatures. I'm not sure if that's overkill or warranted, but I think things like that right now, while Mono White Initiative is so strong at the moment, are reasonable things to look at here. So, but overall, pretty happy with it. I really liked Kiora. That was, whenever we saw this card and played it, it did some really strong things. Very happy there. Really fixes your hand, creates a big threat, and synergizes well with, a lot of the cards we got. So very, very happy with that one. Don't think it's a meme. Think it's a pretty reasonable card. It is legendary and has a bit of an orc issue. Probably sideboarding them out against the blue-black Lyris control deck, but otherwise, I think it's pretty strong in a bunch of spots here. One to think about for sure. Yeah, overall, pretty happy with it. I think I would tech it a little bit for mono white initiative. There's a couple of those black pro white creatures which are a consideration. Any other ideas? Let me know in the comments here how you would think about teching that for mono white initiative. I think the other thing to think about is just the sideboard here. Not sideboard, the lands. You have some tension here between needing the green for survival, which we have the Yavamayas, and the blue-black for frog. I think it's possible going down a wasteland could be reasonable, just to get more of the green lands in here. So, we'll see. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Quite like this one, and probably will revisit it in the not too distant future.